Hello one and all, this is my recap and review of Soma Spider So What? Volume 10. And this is a very, very busy volume, so let's get into this. Now we open up with the world's most awkward tea party, as the three puppet spiders, Whites, Vampy, and Wrath, are all sitting in complete and absolute silence. Now, obviously the puppet spiders don't speak, because even though White managed to make them vocal cords, she wasn't able to finish them before she evolved into a god! White herself never speaks, and Vampy and Wrath have a rather awkward relationship given that Wrath tried to kill her twice and did succeed in cutting off Mira's arms. But really, what really irks Vampy is the fact that in those two battles she lost. She lost badly, and now that Wrath has had his Wrath skills sealed, there's never going to be a point where she's going to be able to, fight against him and say, I did it, I won, I beat him, I am the better fighter here. And, that just seriously irks her. Plus, there's the fact that the envy skill is kind of rotting her brain. Apparently she goes on multiple temper tantrums so bad that either White or Mira need to get called in to, basically hold her down and stop her from going on a massive killing spree. Yeah, there's a reason why White and Ariel tried very, very hard to convince her not to level up the jealousy skill into envy. It's had a fairly strong effect on her. Anyway, though, while this, long, awkward silence is happening, White's trying to figure out what she should do moving forward. Her short-term goal is to figure out a way to make clones. The egg revival system she had back when she was a spider monster, incredibly effective. It made her essentially immortal. Her midterm goal is to figure out a way to help the Demon Lord, because Ariel has done so much to help her, to, support her, especially during those 2 years where she was powerless, and now she wants to pay her back somehow, some way. And her long-term goal is to get strong enough to escape D. And this is a very, very ambitious plan. I mean, there's a reason why this goal doesn't say get stronger than D, because even now that White has become a god, she realizes, yeah, D is just so far above me, so far above me, that I will never be strong enough to actually fight her on a level playing field. Even as I am right now, I am way weaker than Black, who is himself, insanely weaker than D herself. So, yeah, all I can really do, the best thing I can hope for, is to get strong enough where I'll be able to actually escape D's grasp. And, if that doesn't work, if she does fail in this plan, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Honestly, she really does love being around D. She likes being in the palm of D's hands. It's like D is a black hole that's sucking her in, but her pride makes her say, okay, I need to resist, I need to fight back, I need to at least try to escape from her. And if I fail, I fail. At least then I get to be, the pet of the world's strongest god. That's not terrible, at least. Oh, White. Poor White. But anyway, though, then Deadbeat, aka Hooligan, aka Blow, shows up, and he is, royally ticked off about this guy he doesn't know living in his house, especially when he's living, right across the hall from the woman he's in love with. So he wants to know, hey, dude, who are you? And Wrath doesn't really know how to respond, because Wrath doesn't actually speak the demon language. He speaks human language, he speaks goblin language. He hasn't actually learned demon language yet, so it's a very, very awkward moment between the two of them, especially when Blow finds out that Wrath is a monster and briefly attempts to murder him. Until Vampy manages to calm him down, and then, things get very, very awkward as Blow literally needs to beg Vampy to translate for him, because even though Blow is an incredibly high-ranking noble demon, he doesn't actually know the human language, which is very embarrassing for him, very, very embarrassing for him. We actually have to say, pretty pleased with sugar on top, or something like that, to convince Sophia to help him. And then once he's heard, Wrath's full story, or at least a slightly edited version of his story, he says, dang buddy, that's rough, as he cries manly tears and claps Wrath on the shoulder before inviting him to join the army. So yes, as it turns out, Blow is not a bad guy. He is, as White says, a big jerk with a heart of gold. And Wrath decides, okay, you know what? I have nothing else better to do. If I join the army, that can give me a purpose. That can give me a goal. That can give me something to work towards. So I'm going to join the army. Though first and foremost, he does focus on learning the actual demon language, which goes surprisingly well thanks to the memorization skill he has, and within a few months he's able to join the army. He's still struggling a bit on military jargon, but his fellow soldiers help him out in his spare time, so good for him! And throughout this entire period, Blow actually also tries to learn the human language, and it goes much, much more slowly. Oh, poor Blow, he's trying. He is really, really trying, and I appreciate that. But anyway, though, then a year passes, and during that time, White has found a way to create life. All she needs to do is, pour a little thread into her hand, go paparoo, and it turns into a living, sentient spider that can think independently. And I know this is very similar to, what she'd be able to do with her egg-laying skill back when she was a spider monster, but that was, the effect of the system. Now she's able to create life, thinking life, all on her own. That is utterly and completely insane. Though the mini-me's, as she calls them, are insanely weak. They're about as strong as a normal earth spider and can be crushed very easily. They aren't even all that poisonous, so yeah, they're kind of useless for combat, but they are very useful for espionage, as White can share senses with them. She can see what they see. She can hear what they hear. She knows what they know, meaning that she just, sends thousands of them all across the Demon Kingdom and is able to pick up on a lot of information. Good for her. And she has actually found a way to make them stronger. And she did that by creating a parallel dimension. Yes, White created a dimension all on her own where time moves much more quickly. Seriously, that is a god move. That is an absolute god move right there. And she stores all the, mini-me's in there, and she feeds them food provided by her children in the Great Elvo Labyrinth, which makes them much stronger much more quickly. And then as White throws the latest of the mini-me's into that parallel dimension, she tells them, oh, okay, work hard and get stronger, and the mini-me salutes her. And then all of the other mini-me's, the hundreds and thousands of mini-me's, all salute her all at once, and oh my god, I love it. I so love it. I've said before that a second season would really struggle with some of the plot points, but at the same time, seriously, moments like this I so badly want to see animated. Just an army of spiders all saluting White at the same time. Oh, that's adorable. That is so adorable. But anyway, as I said, the mini-me's are great for espionage, and White writes up all of her findings and delivers them in a letter to Ariel. Or miraculously, she hands the letter off to Blow and asks him to deliver to Ariel, which... Oh god, poor Blow. He finally received a letter from the woman he loves. He's like, oh my god, a letter from White. He was on the verge of tears. And then he saw Ariel's name on the cover, and it broke him. It seriously broke him. And even Vampy was like, dude, White, you gotta be better than that. You can't lead a man on in that way. That's just cruel. Even Vampy, who utterly and completely hates Blow, thought that White was being needlessly cruel in this moment. And then Ariel gets the letter, and she is rather surprised by what it says, as it lists the name of ringleaders currently plotting rebellion against her, the number of their forces, the reach of their influence, and how well supplied they are. And Ariel is just so utterly confused about how exactly White managed to find out all of this, and Blow is even more confused because as far as he knows, White has never actually left his mansion, so yeah, this is weird. This is very weird for him. And both of them briefly think, okay, is this some sort of joke? But then they see like the amount of detail White put into this, and they realize, oh no, this is true. This is actually true. There is actually a rebellion being formed in the Northern Territories that's going to try and overthrow the Demon Lord. We need to do something about that. And Ariel is a bit miffed by this because she knew rebellion was coming. Obviously, a rebellion would start up if, a Demon Lord that nobody ever heard of before suddenly showed up and started saying, okay, everybody, I know you're finally starting to do better. I know you're finally starting to grow food again, but we are going to war right here, right now. I don't care if it's going to kill most of you. A rebellion was obviously inevitable, and Ariel's big plan was basically just to take it easy, relax, sit on her butts, and eventually, when rebellion started up, she would step in single-handedly and take it down. She would show off her power enough to make people, listen to her and not rebel again, but she wouldn't appear so powerful that people would flee in panic of her. And now that White's basically laid out the rebels on a silver platter, she can't really, step in and take them down without making it look like she was just bullying the weak. So, yeah, there's not a whole lot she can do at this point. Though as it turns out, White actually ended up saving Ariel's butt here because the rebellion is being aided by the elves, and if Ariel went herself to the battlefield, she would have to face off against a whole bunch of Potomas' robots, his Glorias, and I'm not saying she would have lost, but she could have lost some good allies, she could have lost some of the puppet spiders, and it would have been a very bad situation for her. So White saved the day! Huzzah! But anyway, though, then a task force is dispatched to go put down the rebels, consisting of Al, the leader of the puppet spiders, Mira, the butler, and Wrath, the Oni. And despite, these massive, massive powerhouses, White still has a bad feeling. She doesn't actually know the elves are involved, but she still feels like something's not right here. You know what? I should go to the battlefield too and just lend a helping hand. And when Vampy finds out that White's going by herself to a place that has Mira, she becomes, very jealous because, like I said before, the envy skill is rotting her mind, and she thinks that White and Mira are sneaking off to have a private rendezvous. Holy mother of God, that is a very, very disturbing image right there. So Vampy decides to come along for the ride, and to make sure that Mira isn't cheating on her with White for some reason, and so do the puppet spiders for other reasons. Seriously, why not? At this point, why freaking not? So anyway, though, Vampy, White, and the other 3 puppet spiders all teleport to the town, whose leader, Workus, is leading the rebellion. And as it turns out, he's not actually a bad guy. He's not, evil, even though he's working with the elves. He really does think he's doing what's best for, his people. Because, Ariel's war against humanity, it is almost certainly destined to wipe out demonkind. Even if they win, their population will be so badly reduced that they probably won't be able to sustain themselves, and they'll die out a few years later. So, that's bad. That is really, really bad. And interestingly enough, as it turns out, there are very few corrupt demon nobles, because demon society is a meritocracy where incompetent leaders are replaced. Basically, if you're like a demon duke, and you did a very bad job raising your kids, they're dumb, they're weak, they're just, not good leaders, then you'll be replaced by another demon who is far more capable of running your territory than you are. Fascinating detail. Oh, we also learn a bit more about warfare in this world, and as it turns out, warfare is completely defined by grand magic. Basically, a group of mages work together using the cooperation skill to cast a far, far more powerful spell than any normal person could cast by themselves. And so warfare is essentially, okay, I want to cast my grand magic before my opponent casts his grand magic, and I need to do everything in my power to make sure that his mages, his spellcasters, are just as distracted as possible, throwing stones at them, attacking them, just breaking their concentration by whatever means possible. And this basically means that the task force is at a huge disadvantage against the rebels, because in the few days since the task force was first dispatched, the rebels managed to build giant castle walls all around their town using earth magic, and this means they're able to cast grand magic from the protection of the walls, while, all the task force people needed to cast grand magic, basically being fired at by archers and mages and whatnot who are standing atop the walls. It's not a great situation for them, or so it would seem, but as it turns out, Wrath is broken. Wrath is overwhelmingly broken. In this world, the average soldier has stats about 100 or so. If you reach 1,000, you become, a legendary hero whose name goes down in history. Wrath's stats are at 2,000. Even with the Wrath skill disabled, his stats are still at 2,000. And what's more, he has his magical exploding swords, so he just kind of throws a few of them at the wall, they blow up, and his whole army is able to march directly into the town. It is a very, very easy win for him, and it becomes very clear very quickly that the rebels are going to lose. So the town lord, Workus, calls up Potimas and says, "Hey, Potomas, I need help. Like, seriously, please send me robots or whatever. Just send help. Just send freaking help." And Potomas is like, "Oh, of course I'm going to send help." While thinking to himself, okay, I'm just going to run away. I'm just going to grab up as many of my people as I can and get out of here, because this is a losing battle and nothing I can do can actually change that at this point. I mean, not without, really, really tipping my hand and showing off just how insanely advanced my technology really is. White, meanwhile, figures out that Potomas is behind all of this, finds his teleport gate, uses it, and then teleports directly in front of him. And then Potomas kind of freezes for a few seconds as he's like, White is standing before me. Why is White standing before me? How did White get... And then while he's trying to figure all that out, White punches him in the freaking face and sends him flying, baby. Oh, I love it. I freaking love it. Again, another scene I so badly want to see animated. We need a second season just for this moment. And for the mini spiders, saluting White, and for that time that White's stab Potimas where the sun doesn't shine. Oh, that'd be beautiful. That would be so beautiful. And while this is going on, Wrath has to deal with the elves in the battlefield. But I did a video on Wrath a few days ago. I'm linked that above, down below, somewhere. Anyway, though, then White has to deal with Potimas and his army of cyborgs, his human-type Glorias, and, her evil eye, her warped evil eye, is in fact still very effective against them, even more so now that it's been not being hindered by the system, so good for her. Unfortunately, Potomas then activates his anti-technique barrier, which still works on conjuring, so yeah, White is in a lot of trouble. She can still make thread and still use body enhancement, but she's nowhere near as strong as she was before, so she tries to run away by punching the wall, or kicking the wall, and then she realizes, oh, I'm underground, aren't I? So my foot just kind of, got stuck in the dirt, and now I can't get it out. This is embarrassing. And then she gets shot. A lot. Seriously, a lot. And a normal person would have died 10 times over. But then White asks a very important question. What do you think the strongest RPG attack spell is? And the guess is? Good old Meteor. So she casts Meteor. Or I guess more accurately, she doesn't actually cast a spell, but rather she opens up her, spatial dimension, takes out a giant rock, and teleports it several hundred feet in the air, meaning that when it crashes into the ground, it just completely destroys her own body, completely destroys Potomas' current body, wipes out, 27 humanoid Glorias, and just completely and utterly decimates his entire freaking facility. Oh, it is beautiful. It is so utterly beautiful, and I freaking love it. There's also a bit of very interesting irony here, as Potimas tried to do the exact same thing a while back. His robots, the ones that worked alongside his UFO, were designed to go into space, grab, bits of debris and whatnot, and throw them down at the planet, which would have, completely and utterly destroyed an entire continent. Thankfully, White is not that insane, and just picks, some relatively large rocks that are relatively high up in the air. Oh, and she even says, you can take care of most things if you drop a big enough rock from a high enough place. Oh, I love that. I freaking love that. Anyway, though, the next couple chapters are honestly some of my favorite in the entire series. There's some really great moments here, but what I just so love about them is the fact they are not in chronological order. We see the next few series of events from Potomas' point of view, from White's point of view, from Blow's point of view, from Agner's point of view, from Oka's point of view, so on and so forth. And nobody actually has the full picture. Nobody actually has the full story. So we only get, bits and pieces. We know these things happen, but we don't actually understand why they happened in this moment like this. And it just creates such amazing storytelling. And it just made it so much better to go back and reread these chapters, knowing everything happens, knowing the full story. Like, oh, that's what he meant. Oh, that's actually really cool. I loved it. I so loved it. But anyway, though, here is the big point, just to make things a little bit easier to understand. Miss Oka is now trapped in demon territory with no warp gate to teleport her back to elf territory. And that is problematic because Potimas has already infected her. And at any point, he can, basically move his consciousness into her body, completely take over, and destroy her will. That would essentially kill her. And White really doesn't want that to happen because, as it turns out, back when she was, a normal spider in Japan, Miss Oka saved her life. So even though she doesn't actually remember that physically, it's still somehow etched into her soul, and so she wants to save Miss Oka. Above all else, she wants to save Miss Oka. And obviously, she wants to help Ariel as well, but, those two are, her highest priorities in this moment. So she needs to figure out a way to get Miss Oka back to elf territory. And this is a rather complex plan. Step 1, she needs to basically threaten/blackmail Agner into helping her get to the border. Step 2, she needs to have Mira wipe out an entire tribe of bandits on the border, except for 2 reincarnators. Step 3, she needs to go negotiate/threaten the Pontiff to convince him to have his forces not attack the elves when they get to human territory, and then Ms. Oka will go from human territory to Warp Gate back to elf territory. It is an insane plan, and somehow it works. Good for her. Anyway, though, the first chapter in this long series of events is the elf cackles. And Potimas is, feeling pretty happy in this moment. Yes, he failed to help the rebels. Yes, he lost 27 humanoid Glorias, an entire lab. And yes, he briefly lost access to Oka. But at the same time, he did it. He actually managed to kill White. He actually managed to kill a freaking god. And in this situation, that is a very, very small price to pay. And he's just so ecstatic. He cackles. He literally cackles for the first time in centuries. He is just so filled with joy at having killed White. He could not be happier. And, he figures, okay, now that White's gone, I can completely ignore Ariel, as her side is no longer a threat to me. And that was, White's plan all along. She wanted to fake her own death to make sure that Potimas would essentially underestimate Ariel and allow her to work in the shadows before, trying to interfere with them again. Beautiful, beautiful. And as for how White survived a freaking meteor landing on her head, the mini-me's! Yay, mini-me's! As it turns out, the mini-me's are essentially just an extension of White, so whenever her main body dies, she can just transfer her soul into one of the mini-me's. It takes a few days for them to grow to full size and recover her strength, but at the same time, this essentially makes her immortal, so awesome. Good for you, White! You found a way to become immortal again. And then White is called into the trial of Mr. Warkus, the rebel army leader. And everybody's here. All 10 of the demon army commanders are here. Number 1, we have Agner. Number 2, we have Stanatoria, who White refers to simply as boobs because of her chestal area. And I don't just mean like, oh, she's well endowed. I mean, they are so comically large that White literally cannot look away from them. They are just utterly ridiculous. Third commander is Coco, this big, muscular dude, who's actually a gentle giant and is like super, super nervous. Fourth is Balto, though really he gives all the, actual, military operations up to his brother Blow. Fifth is Barad, who is a knockoff samurai for some reason. Sixth is Huey, who White refers to as Shota, because he's just a really little kid. Yes, demons age differently than humans do, but he just looks so young. He looks so utterly, utterly young. Even younger than Ariel, which is honestly hilarious. And the 7th Army Commander? Well, that is good old Mr. Warkus himself. Oh no! And then the 8th, 9th, and 10th don't really matter. They don't stand out. They're given brief descriptions, but they're not that important. They don't even have any armies. Instead, they're in charge of basically internal affairs. And the point of this whole trial is first off figure out what to do with Mr. Warkus. Obviously, they're going to execute him, but they still need to have this mock trial basically just to confirm that. And secondly, they need to figure out how exactly this happened, because a lot of soldiers joined Mr. Warkus' rebellion, not just from the 7th Army, but from other armies as well. And so Ariel wants to know, okay, did these soldiers just kind of, wander off on their own, or were they ordered to by their commanders? Were there other commanders involved in this rebellion? And the trial has a rather interesting start, as Mr. Warkus is completely and utterly fearless and proudly declares, "It is you all who cooperate with this fool and liquor booth who are the true traitors to the demon race." And essentially he tries to form a second rebellion in the middle of his own trial. He basically tries to convince everyone in this room, hey, if we all work together, we can kill her right here, right now. And that is an insane plan. Unfortunately for him, though, Agner steps in and says, "For a demon to speak out against the demon lord is inexcusable. You should be ashamed of yourself." And this immediately stops rebellion because they'll realize, yeah, Agner is the first among us. He's the best. He's the most respected. If he's not on the side of rebellion, there's no way we can actually win this fight. And what is truly ironic about all of this is the fact that Agner is the true brains behind the rebellion. Not Warkus, not Boob, Shota, or Ninth, who all thought they were the true brains. Not even Potimas, who thought this is all his plan. It was Agner all along. He was, slowly and steadily manipulating and tricking every single person to start this rebellion. And not even the hopes of actually managing to kill Ariel. He knows fairly well exactly how strong she is, and that even if all of demonkind worked together, they probably wouldn't be able to kill her. His big plan in doing all of this, in years of work, was essentially, okay, if I'm able to, just kill some of Ariel's best people, that might delay the war by a few weeks, a few months, a few years even, and that will give me time to, shore up the demon population, add some to our number, stabilize things, make it to the point where we can fight this war against humanity and not be utterly and completely wiped out. Fascinating. Anyway, though, after these few little tirades, Ariel is annoyed, seriously, overwhelmingly annoyed, saying, "You guys are the real traitors against the gods, against the world, the very culprits who mistreated a god, who violated taboo, and who nearly destroyed the planet." And this, tirade might seem a bit misplaced given that none of these demons were alive thousands of years ago when that actually happened, but a very important detail to remember is that part of the system is the fact that souls in this world cannot leave. When somebody dies in this world, they reincarnate into this world, which means that the demons in this room are in fact the same people who mistreated a god, violated a taboo, and nearly destroyed the planet. That really puts things into perspective and explains why Ariel is so mad at, the world in general, humans, demons, both of them, because she knows that, they are still technically the people who did that awful, awful thing to the goddess Ariella. Love that. I absolutely love that detail. Anyway, though, then Ariel's hatred, anger, disgust all fades away fairly quickly as she turns to Blow and says, "Kill him!" She wants Blow to execute Workus. She wants Blow to prove his loyalty by killing him. And Blow just can't do this. As it turns out, him and Workus have been are friends. They're fellow commanders. They fought side by side for a very long time. They really do like and care about one another. And so Blow can't do it. And this is very, very bad, because it looks very much like this means that Blow is a traitor who is working with the rebels. He wasn't, but he's the only person dumb enough to actually, speak out against the Demon Lord to her face, so yeah, does not look good for him, does not look good for him. Thankfully, though, his old friend Mr. Workus steps in and saves the day, as he proudly declares, "I'll not be reduced to experience points for this fool," before grabbing the knife and stabbing himself over and over and over again. Yeah, as it turns out, it takes a very long time to kill a person who has high stats. But anyway, Mr. Workus is now dead. And everyone in the room is just, in awe of this man's convictions and pride. He killed himself so that Blow would not be punished for something that was not his fault. And while Blow technically didn't disobey the Demon Lord, he also kind of didn't obey her because he did hesitate, so he needs to be punished. And this punishment is brutal. It is seriously, overwhelmingly brutal, as Ariel gives him charge of the entire 7th Army. Remember all those soldiers just tried to rebel and take out the Demon Lord? Well, they are now under the command of Blow, a man being suspected of trying to rebel and take out the Demon Lord. So yeah, this is bad for him. This is so bad for him. Basically, he needs to be on his absolute best behavior. He can never show a shadow of a doubt that he's planning on rebelling, or he'll be wiped out. His entire army will be completely and utterly wiped out, and that'll serve as a lesson to, all other demons. They should not rebel, or they will end up like the 7th Army. Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that. And then the meeting ends, all the commanders leave, and Ariel eats Workus' body, leaving not a single drop of blood behind. And others may seem horrifying, disgusting, terrifying, but White knows the truth. White knows this is a sign of respect. This is Ariel saying, "You were a good man, you were a good person, and I'm not going to let a single bit of you go to waste. I'm going to eat every last bite." And just the pain and sorrow on Ariel's face is so obvious, so clear, that White basically needs to step in. And she actually says out loud, "You okay?" And Ariel is shocked. Everyone is utterly shocked that White not only spoke, but actually initiated the conversation. And this just really, works Ariel ever funk. She realizes, yeah, you know what? I do definitely feel guilty about this, but I still have the conviction to keep pushing forward, keep doing what I know is right. So good for her. And then, White needs to deal with the whole Miss Oka thing. First step involved in that is going to have a nice long conversation with Agner, who realizes, yeah, I messed up. I seriously messed up. My whole plan failed spectacularly. And then he looks up and is like, okay, there are spiders on my left. There are spiders on my right. There are spiders in front of me. There are spiders on my desk. There are spiders on the ceiling. I am surrounded on all sides by spiders, and I am completely and utterly terrified. Though, his pride demands that he tries at least, to hide how just truly scared out of his mind he really is. And then White appears, or as Agner calls her, the Demon Lord's eyes. And she gives orders, basically, make sure that Miss Oka gets out of Demon Lord territory safely. And while he is confused by these orders, he, agrees to them and admits defeat. He fully and completely admits defeat and basically says, "I will become the Demon Lord's dog. I will stop any future rebellions. I will make sure her will is carried out. I will make sure that whatever she wants happens, because that is the only way. That is the only way to make sure the demon race isn't completely and utterly wiped out." And then White decides to go complain to D about Miss Oka being reincarnated as an elf, and that plan goes very poorly. First she tries to dropkick her, but D easily dodges her, and then she tries to, basically pick her up and shake her, but then D's clothes are completely torn apart, and she's kind of standing there naked and like, yeah, I don't care, I'm beautiful. I'm the most beautiful person in all of existence. So yeah, you can't really be mad at someone like that. At least until D explains that she also gave Miss Oka the student roster skill, which predicts the death of her students, and also contains false information. And at this point, White isn't actually able to contain her anger anymore, and she punches D. And this time, the blow actually lands, and D's entire head just kind of goes poop and explodes before regrowing itself in the span of a few seconds right in front of White, which is terrifying. though not as much as, D's power leaking out, at which point White realizes, oh my god above, you're a true god, okay, I have no chance, I have absolutely no chance of actually being able to stop you at any point in the rest of my life. Anyway though, because D let her power leak out, this allows her co-worker to come find her, a woman dressed up as a maid who is in charge with managing the circles of hell, who came to drag Dee back to her job of managing the underworld, which is apparently two separate jobs, I guess. Interesting. And the maid is, very confused about what exactly White is, and Dee's explanation doesn't really help. As she says, a special spider mutation, I created her in my likeness to confuse you about where I was, but she exceeded my expectations and became a god. Oh, that is a story. That is absolutely a story. Anyway, though, the maid drags Dee away, and as a result, Dee will no longer be able to interfere in this world, and thus White can do whatever the freak she wants without any fear that Dee will, interfere. Yay! And then she teleports back to the world and explains to Ariel that they're going to need the Pontiff's help to keep Miss Oka safe when she gets to human territory. And Ariel is very confused because, like I just said, White explained this plan. She didn't write it down. She didn't, say it out in, stuttering sentences like, Oka, Pontiff, border. She actually said it all out loud in long, flowing sentences. While freaking sober. Because apparently now White can just, talk to Ariel for some reason. It's explained partly because, they're close now, and also White's because, basically figure herself out. She knows what she really is. She is a spider, but she's also her own self. She's someone who existed because of the actions she made in this world. And while Ariel is still very confused, they end up teleporting directly into the Pontiff's office, which seriously scares the old man and causes his army of ninja bodyguards to pop out and attempt to murder White and Ariel. This would not go well for them. So the Pontiff stops them, and they have a nice long conversation over tea and snacks. Which I love. I seriously love. Oh, also, while I said before that White can now talk, apparently she can only talk to Ariel, so she still stays silent in front of the Pontiff, though that's probably for the best because Ariel and the Pontiff are having this fourth dimensional chess conversation where they're all predicting each other's moves 5 steps ahead. Seriously, at one point in the conversation, after Ariel asks for a safe passage from Miss Oka through the human territories, the Pontiff counters with, in exchange you will defeat the elves? And Ariel counters with, yes, of course. And you have a plan to bring down Potimas? I wouldn't be here if I didn't. She does not. She has no plan to bring down the elves. She has no plan to bring down Potimas, but she has to promise this to, basically get the Pontiff to agree to her plans. Oh, I love it. I freaking love it. Oh, and then, just before she's leaving, she mentions, oh, by the way, we're going to wipe out a border tribe next couple days. When we do, there's going to be 2 survivors. They're reincarnators. Just look after them for me, will ya? You're free to do whatever you want. Raise them up, be demon hunters, adventurers, whatever you want. And then we get the Mira chapter, and I love it. I so love Mira as a character. And we get some really interesting details here that aren't super important, but I just so love. For example, Mira has a strong affection for Wrath and views him as a little brother, despite the fact that Wrath cut off both of his arms and on 2 separate occasions attempted to murder Vampy, the young miss that he has sworn to protect. Oh, Mira is such a forgiving guy. I love that. And secondly, though, when he's referring to Miss Oka in his own mind, he always refers to her as Miss Oka, all one word, because, the Miss thing doesn't really translate all that well to this new world. I love that. I so love that. Anyway, though, then when he finds out that Potomas can control the bodies of others, and that, Miss Oka can be controlled as well and die, and that White owes a life debt to her, he agrees with White's plan to go wipe out an entire border tribe by himself because he understands loyalty. And White actually says thank you. She says out loud, thank you. And it's such a great moment. Such a great moment. I know that White's getting better talking, but it is still so hard for her. So just for her to actually, step up and say something out loud, it is a great sign. It is a great sign of how much he really appreciates it. And I so love that. Anyway, though, then Mira goes to wipe out the entire bandit tribe, except for the 2 reincarnators, and he's really worried that he won't actually be able to do it because he views himself as being overwhelmingly weak, even though he is insanely strong. His stats are probably at least in the thousands, but the problem is he's around, actual giants all day. Wrath's stronger than him, Vampy's way stronger than him, the puppet spiders are insanely stronger than him, And Ariel and White are literally gods compared to him, so in his eyes, he's weak, and that's not even something new. Throughout his whole life, he's always been more of a jack of all trades rather than a specialist. He's always been okay at doing everything, but there's never really been anything he's been, truly good at doing. So, he just has this massive inferiority complex, and it's really sad, but it leads to one of the best lines in any work fiction I've ever read. Seriously, I want to get a tattoo that says this. I repeat it to myself over and over again when I'm stressed. All I can do is live and fight in the present moment to the best of my abilities. Oh, I love it. I love that line so much. And then when it comes to actually, dealing with the bandit tribe, turns out very easy. Very, very easy because he is insanely strong and he kills all of them without any trouble, without a bit of, remorse or guilt or anything until he finally gets to the last two. Asuka and Kunihiko, the reincarnators. And, Kunihiko steps up, tries to protect Asuka. And Mira puts on this whole show like, oh, I've grown bored with this fight. I will leave for now. And the boy shouts out, who are you? And in respect for the boy's, absolute bravery, he says his name. He says, I'm Mirazophis. And, Mira knows. He knows deep down that someday he will face the boy again. And while he does, respect him, he will not hold back. And if the day comes for it, he will kill him if that's what's needed to keep Sophia safe. And as for Asuka and Kuniko themselves, they were in fact childhood friends back in Japan, and then they found themselves reincarnated into the same bandit camp. They're like, hey, it's you! Hey, it's you! That was a very touching moment, and Asuka, she just hated this world, hated the life of banditry and wants to leave it all behind and just go off and live a normal life, just be a normal person somewhere in this world, where Kuniko wanted to become an adventurer. He wanted to go out on these epic battles and adventures and just have so much fun. And that's a bit of an issue because, as it turns out, the bandit tribes are very close-knit, and they do not take well to outsiders or people leaving. So if they actually left, the tribe would have, had a very, very big issue with that. Thankfully, Mira stepped in and murdered every last one of them. Huzzah! Holy Mother of God above. So then they have to bury their entire clan by themselves, even though they're just children, I think around 6 or 7 at this point. Wow, that's depressing. And they make their way back to town, where they run into, weirdly enough, Goto. Yeah, this is the dude, the A-rank adventurer, who back in, I think, Volume 8, tried to face off against, Wrath, and ended up getting beaten badly, and a lot of his friends died. So after they wanted to, quit adventuring, but then he was given Wrath's sword, the flaming magic sword. He's like, okay, if I have this sword, I can't retire. I need to, live up to this sword. And that very sword is changing his fate again, because Kuniko sees things like, hey, that's a katana. This guy must be Japanese. And he starts talking to him in Japanese. It turns out he's not Japanese, but Kuniko realizes, hey, this is an adventurer, and a very strong adventurer at that. So he basically begs this dude to make him his apprentice, so that one day he'll become strong enough to, get revenge, so that he can become strong enough to take out Mira. And again, Asuka does not want any of this. She doesn't really care about revenge or anything like that, but she decides, okay, you know what? I'm going to follow Kuniko because I don't want to be alone, because I truly do care and love him. And while all this is going on, Miss Oka is having a bit of a crisis of faith because she can no longer say if what she's doing is the right thing. She has killed for her students many, many times since coming to this world. And she always thought, okay, this is right. I'm doing it for my students. I'm doing it for world peace. I can be proud of this. But Wrath, aka Sashijima, was such a quiet, good boy back in Japan. And yet now in this world, he's taking so much pride in working for someone as evil as the Demon Lord. So what's going on with that? Could it be that maybe, she's on the wrong side? That maybe the elves aren't actually the good people in all of this? I don't know. But then by the end of the chapter, she's kind of turned things all the way around as she decides to do anything in her power to help Potimas so that she can do my best to live a life I can be proud of too. Oh, that is just so utterly, utterly ironic, and I love it so much. Oh god, poor Miss Oka. Poor Miss Oka. I cannot wait to reach the point in the series where we actually, get back to her storyline and she realizes, oh, the elves were the bad guys. Oh no. And speaking of that, there's another interesting moment in this chapter where Miss Oka passes through the land belonging to the bandits who Mira wiped out, and she has a silent moment of prayer for them, like, oh, why does something this awful need to happen? It's like, it happened because of you. It literally happened to make sure that you could safely pass through the border territory. And I just really wonder, are you ever going to find out about that? Are you ever going to find out that your student's entire tribe were wiped out because of you? I'm very, very curious about that. And then we flash over to White, who says basically, I don't actually care if this entire world dies. I just really want to save Ariel. And that's important because right now, Ariel's plan is essentially suicide. I mean, she realizes that she has no chance of actually beating the elves, so all she can do is, wage this huge war against humanity, build as much anime energy as possible, and then die and hope the next generation is able to push them over the finish line and save the world. Unfortunately for her, she doesn't realize that there is no next generation, and thus, White makes a vow. She swears on her mother's grave, even though she's the one that killed her mother, that she will save Ariel, and that Ariel will get an epilogue where she goes, "Thanks, White, you're the best, I love you." And Ariel has a lot of questions about this whole monologue White just did. First off, the whole undying love thing, which, yeah, I have a lot of questions about that as well. I'm honestly not sure what's happening here. I mean, they are technically grandmother and granddaughter, but a lot of their banter feels like flirting, which is weird. So weird. But anyway, though, then there's also the fact that White said there's no next generation, and, White figures, okay, you know what, let's call up Ghoulie Ghoulie, he can explain things better than I can. At which point Ariel says, never say that to his face. Which actually raises a very good point, because throughout this entire series, White has always referred to people by nicknames, and that's never been an issue because, she never actually says them out loud. But if people actually hear the way that White refers to them, I feel like that might be a bit of an issue. Especially, the Second Army Commander Sanatoria, or as White calls her, Boobs. Oh, poor Boobs. Poor Boobs. But anyway, though, then Ariel leads her into the basement, where there is a hidden room that's actually an alternate dimension where the Sword of the Demon Lord is kept. A sword so powerful, it can be used to kill a god, but it can only be used every couple thousand years, and is not there right now, meaning it's been used recently. And White realizes, hey, wait a second, didn't the last hero and Demon Lord try to kill D with some sort of super powerful weapon? Is this a sword that wiped out my entire class? Which, yeah, I think it is. Holy mother of God, love that. Also love the fact that, this sword was literally made by D as kind of a prank, and it was used to try and murder her. Oh, that is beautiful. That is so beautiful. Anyway, though, there's also Reese in this room, a dark dragon with the head of a dragon and the body of a human, who speaks in this screaming, horrid bird voice that reminds me a lot of the crow from Billy and Mandy, if anyone remembers that. Though perhaps even more terrifying than his voice is the fact that Reese claims to be genetic siblings with Ariel. Somehow. I really don't understand how that family tree works, but apparently they are siblings somehow, some way. Anyway, though, then Black gets summoned, and Black explains that the world is in fact dying. The world's always been dying, but now it's dying even more so. The people in it are dying because, they're reincarnating over and over again within the same world. It's taken a serious toll on the souls. Even more so because of the stats and skills, which, every time a person dies, those are literally ripped off the soul and the energy from them is put back into the system. And so, now the souls are dying. The souls are getting worn out, and sooner or later they will, fall apart. They will disintegrate. And when that happens, no more reincarnating, no afterlife, no heaven, no hell, just utter and complete oblivion. And there just, quite frankly, isn't enough time to save the world before the souls in it die. And so Ariel realizes that everything she's done up to this point has been utterly and completely useless. She, tore out her own emotions. She was willing to wipe out demons, wipe out humans, even die herself for the sake of saving the world, and it has all been utterly and completely useless. And this breaks her. This so badly breaks her. But thankfully, her good old friend White steps in with a solution. Let's just break the system! Because, yeah, the system itself does way more than just, revive the planet. It also gives people stats, skills, reincarnates them over and over again. And those parts aren't actually needed to keep the planet, alive, to revive the planet. So her plan is basically just to take apart those systems, add their power to the planet revival system, and then save the world that way. Yay! And it might work. I mean, it still wouldn't be quite enough energy, but, Ariel's plan is to start a war, which will force people to level up, which will, recover energy when they die. And if she does that, it might just give the system enough energy to actually fix the planet. So they have a solution. They have a real solution to save the world. And Ariel is finally upbeat and happy. She's like, all right, team, let's save the world. Though then things take a very, very dark turn as the next chapter starts off with, I didn't lie. As White explains that her plan will save the world, but breaking the system means getting rid of skills and stats, which means they will be forcibly removed from the souls they've been attached to, And given these souls are already pretty worn out, there is a very high chance that people, especially the stronger people in this world, will die. And not just regular death, they will experience soul death. Their souls will be utterly and completely obliterated. And yeah, this is a bit of a problem because, first off, Black is not going to be happy when he finds out about this, and he will try and interfere, and he will try to kill White one way or another. So yeah, that's a problem. And, Black is still far stronger than White is, so she needs to figure out a way to actually get strong enough to stop him. There's also just, the moral issue of wiping out most of the world's population, but as it turns out, White does not care. She truly does not care about the people of this world at all. She just wants to protect Miss Oka and Ariel. And an interesting tidbit, turns out Ariel doesn't actually care about the world either. Yes, all she cared about since the very beginning is saving Sariel, the goddess. And we find out that because White goes to visit Sariel, who has been in a rather unexpected place, the Great Elro Labyrinth, where this series first started. At the bottom stratum where Mother was kept, there is a metal plate, and under that metal plate is Sariel, the system itself. It is running to this very day. The goddess, just in a horrific state, suspended from the ceiling, her body half melted, sang in a cold mechanical voice over and over again, leveled up, skill gained, skill leveled up, over and over and over. It is heartbreaking to watch for Ariel. She cries, she literally cries, seeing Sariel in this state, and she even calls out to her, Mother. Even though White knows that there is absolutely no blood relationship between the two of them, she still knows without a shadow of a doubt that Sariel is in fact the mother of Ariel. And, this is the truth. This is the truth of the world. All that Ariel's done this entire time has been to save her mother, to save the goddess. She doesn't care about the world. She doesn't care about its people. All she cares about is her own mother. And so White decides, Ariel deserves a happy ending. From now on, I'll be an evil god, the most evil god this world's ever seen, plunging people and elves alike into the depths of horror and despair. And thus, an evil god is born. A god who's just trying to help her grandmother save her mother. Oh, that is sad. That is so overwhelmingly sad, and I so love it. I also love the foreshadowing here because, murdering the entire world's population, or at least the strong of the world's population, was actually foreshadowed back in Volume 5. Ms. Oka's student roster skill said that a lot of her students, the strongest of her students, would die of skill divestment, which always seemed like a very, very strange line. Now we know its meaning when White actually hacks the system and breaks the world and steals all the power for herself to save the planet. It will kill a lot of students because their skills will be divested. Oh, that's going to be fun to watch. That's going to be very, very fun to watch, and I cannot wait for it. But please let me know what you think down below. Is White doing what's right here? I'm not actually sure about that. I feel like in most situations you argue from a rational standpoint that killing most of the population to save the world itself is morally right because if the world dies, everybody dies. But here, I feel like if the world dies, the souls will be free from the cycle of the system and allowed to enter, actual reincarnation and go live off other lives in other worlds, which is interesting. Very, very interesting. Not sure about that. Anyway, though, I will start working on my Volume 11 video shortly, but it will probably be a while. Probably around mid-January is when I'm actually going to get it done. I'm going home from winter break, so I'm going to be very busy with all that. And yeah, just let me know what you think down below, and until next time, peace!